Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining. My name is Brent Hammett. I lead the U.S. marketing efforts for Dooap. So we're an AP automation company based in Austin, Texas, and we focus specifically on helping mid-market organizations using Microsoft Dynamics, AX 2012, and FO, increase the efficiency of their invoice handling and approval process. And today I'm joined by my colleague, Anna Tujunen, who's the Chief Product Officer at Dooap. And today we're hoping to share some ideas on how to speed up the month-end closing using AP automation. And we're anticipating this lasting about a half hour. And for those that may want to share this with colleagues, the recording will be sent out afterwards. Also, on the right side of your screen, you will see a tab for a chat with a chat box. Feel free to type any questions throughout the presentation in there. Those are going to be public. If you want your question to be private, there's a questions tab. Just ask in there, and we'll be the only ones that can see that. We'll start with a brief conversation around month-end closing, and then Anna has some slides prepared where she'll go more in depth. And so I guess jumping right into it, Anna, I was hoping we could start out, and I was hoping you could share your view or experience with the month-end close, and why is it so famously challenging?
Hi. Yes, thanks for the question, Brent. I assume most people in finance have had a month-end close where all things have gone bad, all deadlines gone over, and personal plans cancelled. And the main reasons why it sometimes is so hard is that there is a mistake somewhere, but you have no idea where. And mistakes happen, but for preventing that to happen, you need to do basically two things: reduce the possibility for the errors, and increase your probability on finding the error.
Gotcha. Okay, and then with all the, I guess the pain points, why do we go through this month-end process, and are there any easier ways?
Well, the purpose of the month-end closing is to guarantee that the figures in our finance statements give us a reliable picture. There's a lot of conversation around easing the month-end close because of the time-consuming nature and pretty much the resources it takes. And you could basically have a so-called soft close. And I think that is a good conversation, but you don't necessarily have to compromise your GAAP standards or take any risk that by postponing the thorough close, you will end up in trouble later, as you do have to do the hard close eventually. With automation, you should be able to reconcile more often and make the month-end close like any other day. But I do like the concept of using common sense in what needs to be juggled to the correct period and what is okay to just roll over to the next one.
Gotcha. Are there any pitfalls related to that, or can we just always let invoices post like they are?
Key in here and in many other points is the consistency. So making sure that you're always posting the invoices the same way. If we don't have to care so much on what the period of the invoice is going to, we just need to make sure that we don't post twice the same ones to the same period. This is different from the duplicate invoices. I mean, for example, from utility invoices, there's a lot of benefits with machine learning powered with reoccurring invoices. So you would get a warning every time you're trying to post an invoice that is basically related to the same contract, for example, to the same period.
Gotcha. And I guess building on that, so how big of a role does AP have in the month-end close?
Well, AP is where you usually start. It affects so many other parts of the process, and you usually need to get that done and closed first. Core part of it is to make sure you have all the cost side in. It would be really dangerous to be showing too flattering performance and that you would be making profit when you really are not. And you have to also know what you're missing. So what if there is a liability unrecorded that will have a huge financial impact, for example? AP is also very work heavy. There's a possibility for big errors if everything is manual. Even if you're really, really careful, with us being just humans, you can really mess up the key performance indicators if you, for example, are showing too flattering product margins. Currency errors, too many zeros, all of those are easy to do when we're processing things manually. I actually remember my own big error when I was able to slow down a month-end close. I was relying on the vendor default currency rather than checking the one on the invoice. I was typing it, and it was a $10,000 invoice, but it turned into a $100,000 invoice because of the currency valuation. I think it was Swedish crowns compared to USD or something like that.
Wow, yeah. So then how did you find the error?
Well, experienced colleagues. We had a lot of reports to narrow down the variance in I think it was first purchases, might have been initially that product margin. It was kind of, there was good reports to discover that, but in a way it was spotted only that late in the process that it grew a bit bigger than it initially was.
All right. So the last question, I guess, to start out, who needs a faster month-end close then?
Well, that's a good question, as there needs to be a motive for a faster process. So if your stakeholders are not pushing to get the figures faster, I think there is always anyhow a motive for making everything easier and more efficient. And I think month-end closing is a good final exam on how well are you doing in your other processes. So every time there is a mistake or an error found during the month-end close, I think you have to write it down and see if there is any way to prevent it in the future, or if there is a report that can find it faster next time.
Gotcha. Okay, cool stuff. All right, well then I'll go ahead and I'll stop there and let you go on and get started with your presentation now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So, on my agenda today is to prove how important AP automation is to fluency of your month-end closing. And we already talked a bit about what makes month-end closes challenging. And I think there is certain types of problems you might face. The ones that you can hardly influence and the ones that you definitely have to take in control. What you usually cannot control is other people's behavior. So vendors sending late payments, for example. But for the other kind of problems, you have a few good ways to get them sorted. Your toolbox for fixing is technology, process planning, and communication. So planning the month-end process is where it starts, and without having a plan how to execute it, the other efforts really hardly help. Communication is your tool for getting the people on board, meaning approving the invoices on time and also informing finance if there is something influencing the figures that is not in yet, like that big liability, for example. So what we're focusing today is the technology part, how AP automation can help assure the financial reports are the best possible. The pains that can be eased with technology are related to usually manual work or data quality, lost invoices or slow approving process. There might be bad general ledger interfaces that is preventing the correct data or getting the invoices faster to your ERP. And you might be just lacking tools for querying and reconciling within the system. So that means that basically you couldn't find the errors even if you tried. So for the benefits of AP automation, I can set 3 goals that are guaranteed to improve with AP automation. And those are automation, visibility, and consistency. With automation, I mean pretty much all parts of the process that reduces any manual entries. And the most important part is the invoice capture and making sure our invoices are digital from the beginning. I prefer the capture to be fully automated, so it's completely kind of off your worry list. But this means the use of really invoices, where vendors are delivering the data of the invoice along with the digital picture. Or the other route would be to use capture as a service, where someone specializing in the OCR capture is doing that on behalf of your AP. When capture is automated, that means you're processing the invoices in the correct order of urgency from the get-go. So goal is to have them automatically posted immediately after they arrive from capture. When you're doing the last day of posting those vendor invoices, you want the system to push you the last remaining invoices, so you don't have to drop everything to start entering them. Other important automation point is keeping the workflow short and efficient and automated as possible. So approval hierarchies can easily get out of hand, and this affects especially those big invoices that you need to get approved efficiently. So when you have 7 people on the workflow, I'm always afraid that everybody trusts that the other person is going to check the invoice, and eventually nobody does. And also 7 people like to all take at least a day for their own approval. So speaking of which, for approving the invoices and getting the fast approvals, it is important to reach the approvers with a mobile solution, which I'm showing here on the screen. With the mobile app, you're able to reach the people who are busy and pretty much hate approving invoices. Mobile approving is not constrained by time or place, and approving is fast and easy. Also, how we, for example, have designed our mobile app is that we try to give all the necessary information to the approvers so that they can use cross-reference for the coding of previous months, along, for example, with other info on the invoice, like unit prices. So I could see the vendor's previous invoice easily. Here on the screen, I'm just checking one invoice. I'm pondering, will I send it back to AP? But then I realize it's okay. The coding was correct and workflow was good too. And then I just swipe right and approve it. Good. Then to my second point in visibility. I admit I was struggling to find the correct word to describe this, but I put down cloud access. And I'm not just talking about software in cloud or anything, but the fact that as a finance person, you're able to see the digital invoices from anywhere and be in control of what the status of the invoice is. Full visibility on all parts of the process, to the history of the invoices, to the current ones that are there, and to the next ones on my list. Action logs and the information of invoices that have been sitting with the approvers for a while, that's the information that I want to know. This is also related to the importance of reports, on being able to use reporting as a tool on how much we have, for example, those unapproved invoices, and to find the possible errors in the process, and eventually doing the final analysis on the correct figures. I'll show you some of our reports in the end of my presentation, but now the final goal is to reach consistency. And this is so important when considering the quality of the financial reporting. If the figures are not comparable over time, they are not reliable and eventually unusable for decision making. And automation has so much to offer to the quality from consistency. So, for example, machine learning powered coding can keep you on track in a flexible way, and you don't have to remember how it was coded before. For consistency, that's just the worst thing, that 1 month something is coded to IT and the other it's coded to marketing. By every time trying to reason where it goes, it could go either way. Machine learning can help get it right. And for now, really digging into AP. So these are the process steps that are included with Dooap. So the best case scenario is where the invoice goes through this whole process in minutes. For an e-invoice, as there is no capture time, because the invoice has the data format already, there is no error validation, and as there cannot be any missing data or keying in errors. And if the workflows are short or approving can be done automatically or from the mobile, there is no lag caused by those that either. Coding can be derived from vendor defaults or through machine learning. And three-way matching can auto-approve the purchase order invoices. But if you have manual steps here, this is the typical days of delay that it casts to every part of the process. And I'm actually trying to be nice here, but I took the figures from the best case estimate. So, for example, there is no way a paper invoice is snail mailed and keyed and scanned in within 1 day. But if it is at least a PDF that you still have to key in or save somewhere and save to your ERP, then it's at least less than the posted paper. With AP automation, there is different maturity levels, and starting slowly is okay. So biggest problem to my eyes is that if the beginning of the process, meaning the invoice digitization, is heavy on manual work, error prone, slow, the effect just carries over in a bad way. So my small error in not checking that default currency versus the currency on the invoice cost 4 people 4 hours each of pondering what's wrong and later fixing. That error would not have happened with the invoices or any machine that does not get tired of checking the same things every day. Anyhow, I want to now show this in our software. So just a second, I'll open the Dooap application. There we go. And I am logging into my demo environment. It is recognizing me as a user, as Dooap is fully integrated with Dynamics ERP. So here we have the Dooap desktop application. So desktop is especially for AP users, and the mobile you saw already before is for the approvers. Both can use the desktop if they want to. And I have invoices and capture as a service invoices here. And all the time when vendors are sending in invoices, they will appear to my work queue as fully captured. I can now focus on the urgent invoices without dropping my work to key in new ones. Good. So how this lays out is that the software is Dooap is suggesting me the most urgent invoice first, and then I have the work queue of all the invoices that are waiting for me to be handled. In the month end, I'm especially interested with the invoices that are to the previous period, so I can easily filter the view to get the focus invoices on my work queue. Now I can continue to sort to, for example, focus on certain vendors or the biggest invoices that I have in the queue, or for example, to get the PO invoices if I know that we have deliveries already on those goods in transit. Good. This invoice here has already been pre-coded. It is a non-PO invoice, and it has a workflow that has been derived from this invoice default information. For the machine learning, I can see that our machine learning is already suggesting that with this defaults that you have compared to the previous invoices, it's not a good match. It's most likely I do have a error somewhere, as it is highlighting that this is a 39% possibility that it's going like this. For now, let's assume I know that my business unit that I have derived was actually wrong. I'm changing that, and now I get a new suggestion of a 99% probability. By clicking this, I can apply that workflow, which I can then use to send the invoice to the workflow. There is other possibilities too, which are not that likely, only 1% chance, but I'm going to go with the 99%. Good. Approving this and sending that to the workflow, the system will now check if the invoice can be approved automatically. If there was, for example, a PO invoice in question, it would check the three-way matching part and then be able to skip the approval process fully. Good. What I next want to show is a bit of our reports. So just a second, I'll open our Power BI reports that we have pre-designed. You can also kind of design and suggest your own Power BI reports, but we have made some dashboards especially for AP needs. Reports make such a big difference to a month-end close. They're needed to validate the accuracy, to make cross-referencing, and to make manual journal entries automated as possible. I usually want to dig into the variances and try to find any outliers in those figures. We have two kinds of reporting in Dooap. One is to make just quick queries directly, where you use the where you use the software. You're able to do, for example, vendor lists, and to get the listing of vendor invoices from the previous month. But we also have Power BI reports to help visualize the flow, help controllers to spot the errors and analyze the figures. A few examples that I want to show in these reports is, for example, this basic report that we have for seeing who has unapproved invoices in the workflow and how many invoices we have that are, for example, already due. It's telling me the amount of invoices and the monetary amount of the invoice. And by clicking the reports, I can dig into the figures. I can now see that from those already due invoices, to which vendors do they belong to, and to which approvers. I can also from here, from the report, I can dig in to even lower level to see the exact invoices that there is unhandled. One report that I really like is, for example, the open invoice breakdowns, where is a good example of spotting those outliers. So these reports have been designed so that you can monitor the invoices every day without actually checking every invoice. So you don't have to wait with the visibility to the month-end close when you're really starting to dig in. You can be proactive and see already forward when invoices are standing still. So, for example, here I have one outlier that is a big invoice, as it is almost a 20K invoice. So it is due in 30 days. It doesn't worry me yet, but I can see it here that I do have a bigger invoice that is due at some point. I can monitor that even though there is no urgency yet. Then there is another outlier that is a big invoice again, but it's already due. So it's almost over 11,000. And I can see that there is, when I click it, I can see who has it and what are the details of that invoice. Also in the report, I have the possibility to spot those invoices that are usually missed. So for example, here I have a bigger circle that is saying that there is a small invoice. Yeah, it is already due. It usually wouldn't necessarily caught my eye earlier, but as it's already been sitting in the process for 20 days, which the size of the circle is telling me, then I could have actually spotted that already earlier, that why isn't it moving? Why has it been there even for a week, already for a week? We also have possibilities for notifications in these cases, but notifications don't usually tell the reason why it is there, and with the reports, I'm able to spot those earlier. Good. With the multiple different kinds of reports, one thing that I especially want to show with the month-end closing is our fast close report. So our fast close means automatic accruals, or at least we're making the accruals for invoices as easy as possible. This report, based on the date selections that I do, is showing me the invoices that are unapproved, and it is bringing me the coding that is on those invoices already. So I am able to export this out to an Excel file and import that directly to a Dynamics memo journal. And so I'm able to do the accruals on the exact information that there is on those unapproved invoices. Good. That was pretty much everything I had to show you today. And did we have any Q&A questions?
Looks like there was one question, and it talks about machine learning and what does that mean in practice. I know you kind of briefly went over that in the demo, but I guess if you could elaborate a little bit more on, I guess a use case for it, or what exactly does it mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I do admit that machine learning is used as a buzzword, and it doesn't really yet tell us how it could be used. And what we have embedded here for users of Dooap is that through machine learning, you would be all the time able to utilize all the history data for the consistency and for automation. And machine learning can be used in multiple places. So for what we have, for example, is coding and workflows. And what we're next doing is that reoccurring invoice automation in a way that we're able to automate contract invoices or any rent invoices or anything that is repeating in the same pattern from month to month. There is huge possibilities in what it can bring in filling all that invoice data to find errors that are usually not based on any rules, but are just odd compared to the invoice history. And then to be able to make decisions on automation and skip approving steps because it's fitting the pattern of those invoices that have been approved before.
All right, cool stuff. All right, thanks, Anna. I think that's all the questions that we did receive. So we'll go ahead and conclude here. We're actually just under a half hour. So thanks everyone again for joining. If you do have any follow-up questions or just want to know more about Dooap, our website is dooap.com. And then from there, there's a contact us page, and feel free to reach out to really anybody from the team. All of our phone and email addresses are listed there. Otherwise, thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.